Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be working on the Corvette, but today's not a mod day. Today is a repair day. As you guys saw from the title, something has gone wrong with the car. Well, we finally had something go wrong, and I've had to tear the car apart to figure out what it is. I want to show you one of the symptoms that I saw. So I went for a test drive. It was actually my fourth test drive because I was having cooling system issues with trying to bleed the intercooler. The new pump setup, it would not bleed. So I was like running it. I ran it unplugged. I ran it plugged. Finally, I took enough curves, I guess, to get all the air to the top. It bled out properly. Finally got coolant flowing. So when I got home from the last test drive was probably 15 miles one way, so about a 30-mile drive, maybe 40. And I started noticing white smoke coming through the hood. It wasn't, you know, a consistent, like something was burning. I pulled over, I didn't see anything. So I limped it home, got it home, and I was like, well, what the hell's going on? I parked it in the driveway. I didn't see anything, so I pulled it into the garage, and I went back out to the driveway. There were stains on the concrete. I was like, well, what the hell is that? Long story short, guys, the car blown oil out the bottom of the motor. And I'm like, well, what the hell is that? So, totally concerned. I put the car in a lift, and I saw the entire bottom half of the car just caked in fresh amber oil. Because like I said, I've only driven 30 to 40 miles on this new oil change, and you know the oil hasn't turned brown yet. And if you guys can see, I did wipe this off, but as you guys can see, there's a nice sheen of oil on top of the catback. Actually, here's a nice glob of oil right here. You know, the exhaust got coated in oil, the frame got coated in oil, and various other stuff got coated in oil. And walking over here toward the car, you guys might say, oh, you know, it doesn't look like anything's not normal or anything, but let's take a look under the car. So in here is the big reveal. As you guys can see, we've got a header, we have the clutch, various tools, and back there you guys can see the drivetrain. We have the torque tube, the bell housing, the transmission, transaxle, and the rear brakes back there. So as you guys can see, I've been busy tearing the car apart trying to figure out what's going on. And the smoking gun, I guess if you want to call it that, the biggest sign that something was going wrong was the fact that the bell housing and the back of the oil pan were just dripping in oil. Like, what the hell is that? I figured it'd be one of three things. One, the oil pan could be leaking, the oil pan gasket. Two, could be the rear main seal leaking. And three, there could be a freeze plug behind the new input bearing that we put in, pilot bearing, whatever you want to call it. That's what the drive shaft slides into. That could have been leaking too, because you can hit that just right, and that will cause a leak. And I was looking at those three items. I'm like, either way, the drivetrain is coming back out of the car. Not the motor, but just the transaxle and the torque tube and everything. So I put the car back on the lift, started disassembling it. It's taken a couple days, but we've gotten everything out. I will say this, and we just filmed this with the clutch install, so I didn't film it again. I will say this, doing the transaxle drop with the car on the lift, but just on jack stands, was so much easier. Like, I didn't have to deal with a tall transmission jack, you know, teetering over one side or the other. I just put the trans jack not all the way up, probably 3/4 of the way up, literally backed the torque tube out, hit that release button, made sure everything was clear, of course, and the transmission just slowly dropped down nicely. And nothing fell over, I didn't drop anything, I didn't break any lines. So if we had to do this again, this is the way I'm going to do it from now on. Yes, you're kind of on your back doing this, but just because you're that much closer to the ground, there's no risk of the whole transaxle flying over, flipping over. And as you guys saw in the last video, we broke the diff cooler. You know, with this, not even an issue. And as you guys can see, I left it all one piece. I left the subframe, the trans, and the torque tube all one piece. And it came out like clockwork. Now, if I have trouble putting this all back together, I will take the torque tube off, and shove it into the back of the motor. Did have a little bit of issue lining the clutch up last time because the clutch alignment tool that I have was kind of like, it was sagging, so when I put the torque tube in, it wouldn't go in. I took everything back out, put that clutch alignment tool straight, held it up a little high, and the torque tube slid right in. So if I have that issue, I will take the torque tube off. Not a huge ordeal, but this time I didn't even loosen the motor mounts. I just left the motor where it is, and it was good to go. So let's get under the car and show you what we found so far. Here's the back of the motor. As you can see, we got the flywheel off, the clutch is over here, etc. You will see that there is oil here piled up on the back of the rear main seal cover. So here, 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 and here, and here. Now, I did not see any oil coming, like, you know, being bunched up here in the corners of the oil pan over here or over here. So what I think is going on is a combination of maybe two things. One, the rear main seal is leaking just a bit. The second is this rear cover may have come loose. I have not touched the bolts yet, but this may have come loose. So, you know, that'll be the next thing I look into. So in anticipation of that rear main seal being blown out, because I figured that was one of the issues, I went ahead and ordered a new rear cover. It's actually slightly cheaper for you guys to just go ahead and buy a whole new rear cover assembly with the seal and gasket than it is to buy the individual seals. I believe the gasket's like 20 bucks, and the rear main seal is probably along the, you know, that $15, $20 mark. Well, guess what? This cover with the bolts and two gaskets was only like, I think 50 bucks on Amazon, and I got it in 2 days prime. So I was like, well, screw it. So I went ahead and ordered this. I'll have the part number in the description below for this. And basically what we're gonna do is take the two bottom bolts out on the oil pan, take those two long narrow bolts out, replace the cover, and make sure this goes on there tight. Now, I also ordered that freeze plug, not knowing if that was the actual issue. That freeze plug is dry. The input bearing is great. It only has 15 miles on it. I'm not going to touch that. I'm not pulling those out. There's no reason to. It's a brand new bearing. Now, I checked it. The bearing is straight. There's no scuffing on it. There's no scores on it. And so the Transaxle will slide right back in as if this was a fresh install. I will say this, when I took the old input bearing out, maybe this was because I was beating on it to get it out of the crank. The middle of the hole was like, not warped, but like oval shaped. Like it had been rounded out. Now, I don't know if I did that pulling the Transaxle out or if I did that trying to get it out. So I've checked it, it's fine. We're just gonna replace this cover and basically put the car back together. All right, guys, we ended up replacing the rear cover with the seal and the gasket behind it. We used all the new hardware that came with the kit. These bolts bolt down to, they torque down to 18 foot-pounds, and the bottom oil pan bolts, these torque down to 8.9 or round up to 9 foot-pounds. And that should be it. We took the old cover off, put the new cover on, bolted everything in a star pattern, so start one side, work your way around the other, and that's pretty much it. So let's get the car back together, then we'll go for another test drive. The car is back together. We actually just got back home for the first test drive. Yeah, I let the car warm up for about 20 minutes outside, and I actually pulled it into the street because I didn't want it to leak motor oil all over my concrete driveway again. And I mean, I got that cleaned up, but my street, you know, it's easier to clean up. So let it idle for like 20 minutes outside. It didn't leak at all. The one thing I was noticing, it was smoking a lot. What that smoke was, it was just like all the grease and grime and all that crap burning off the headers. Like it smoked for probably a good 10 minutes. And honestly, guys, it may have actually been tied to the ceramic coating. I don't know what the, you know, baking period on those is. Like, is there a, you know, once it gets extended amounts of heat, like heat cycles, does it off gas? Does it like change molecular properties? I just don't know. So maybe in combination of motor oil that was actually on the exhaust from when it let go, that rear seal let go, or combination of that and the you know, ceramic coating on them. And as you guys can see, they look great. You know, they fit just fine. Last night when I was under the car on the lift, I zip tied everything out of the way. Basically, the only thing you guys really have to worry about in a C6, and particularly a manual C6, are the clutch slave cylinder. You know, that's a metal line, so that's not really going to go anywhere. But then you got the bleeder. I've got a speed bleeder from Tick. So I zip tied those two together. And on both sides, you kind of need to worry about the O2 sensors. And I zip tied those out of the way as well. Not only the extended O2 sensors in the back by the cats, but also the up front ones. Can't really see them, but you see that blue plug? That goes right down into the O2 sensor. So just make sure that the O2 sensors and the clutch stuff on the driver's side, that's all zip tied out of the way. So that's kind of like the last thing that, you know, I really had to make sure was good. And I busted ass on this car yesterday, guys. Like, I was out here during my lunch break, so I was out here for an hour there, and then I didn't finish until almost 11 o'clock last night. Like, when I came out here yesterday, there was no exhaust on the car, no spark plugs, no coil packs, no spark plug wires. So I had to do the ignition system, then install the headers, put the O2 sensors in, plug those in, zip tie everything out of the way, and then do the mid pipe from the cat back and the mufflers in the back. So, you know, so it was a lot of work, but we finally got the car done. And my initial test drive, honestly, guys, I was babying it. I was trying to get this clutch broken in, and did a couple pulls, but like higher gears and like third or fourth gear, and I didn't go anything over 65 or 70 miles an hour. So nothing too crazy. But tomorrow I'm going to do an extended drive, and actually this is the drive, I'm going to do the same drive I did approximately 2 weeks ago, and that's where I discovered the oil leak. So we're going to do that same drive tomorrow. I think we should be good, because at this point, last time I had the same issue. Like, you know, it was already starting to leak. I put a drip tray under the car. I'm gonna, you know, we'll check overnight. I have it parked at an angle. It is on a front set of ramps, and hopefully, you know, with it being on an angle, if it is gonna leak, you know, we'll notice it tomorrow. I stopped and checked multiple times. Took a flashlight with me because it is already dark outside. Didn't see any oil. Didn't see anything. No misting or anything like that. And I checked the bell housing. The bell housing looks clean. So hopefully we're good. And I will say this, that burn off, you know, from the oil and stuff, that really concerned me. I was like, oh crap, you know, we tore the car apart, replaced the seal, replaced that back cover, and what did it do? It's leaking again and pissing oil on the headers. But thankfully that wasn't the case. It was just the oil and, you know, from your fingers and other stuff burning off the exhaust. Oh, and you know what, guys? I actually just thought of it. What was smoking would have been the mid pipe. I cleaned it, you know, I wiped off all the oil from the previous time I got oil down, but I didn't like deep clean it. If I had cleaned that, you know, properly and removed all the oil, that may have smoked a lot less. But now it's gone, it's fine. I let the car idle outside, and you know, we should be good. Alright guys, that's going to be a wrap for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a big thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed, please do. If you want to know when I upload new content, hit that bell notification button down below. And as always, guys, if you want to help support the channel, click the links down below. Thanks, guys. Have a great one.